All right, so it's a beautiful Saturday out here. More or less, I'm gonna have kind of the same video as last week. I'm gonna have one little project that I'm gonna work on, and it's more or less, I wouldn't say one little project. I'm gonna take the intake manifold and kind of the top end of the engine and knock out some stuff on there. So the intake manifold needs to be bolt down. I need to put the injectors in. I need to put new seals on the intake manifold. I need to tighten fuel lines. I mean, there's a lot of little small things that need to be done still on this engine before it's ready to run, and that's my focus today, is kind of knock out those small things. Once that part's done, it's pretty much ready to, run and add fluids and all that. So I would say next week, that'd be my goal at least. Next week, this thing should be running. And yeah, that's a pretty good goal for me. Anyways, I wasn't even supposed to be here this weekend. We were supposed to be out of town. I'll explain later in the video. My son got sick, and that's just the way it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started so I can get as much done as possible, and hopefully get it to a point where, like I said, next week we have this thing running. So anyways, we'll see what happens. Alright guys, so this is kind of the setup here. This is a factory LS1 intake manifold, nothing special. Factory LS1 throttle body. We have Holley fuel rails, the Holley regulator, Deca injectors, little Felpro gaskets there, and that's that little pad that came with it. I don't know if I'll even use that. So yeah, pretty much that's it. It's nothing special. It's a pretty simple setup. This should easily make, I'm thinking 550, 600 wheel horsepower with this setup. In the back, I got dual Walbro 255s right there. I got an N-Tank Walbro 400 that feeds the pot here, and then that pot, you got the two pulls for the 255s that feed the front. Those merge into a 10AN line, and then the 10AN here breaks off to a Y fitting, and you have two 8ANs that feed the back of the rails here, and then you got the return line there. So it's a pretty simple setup. Again, nothing too fancy or crazy. So that's kind of the game plan today. Get the injectors in, get the intake manifold put on. All right guys, so I'm gonna take a little bit of a break from working on the car for right now. My son has been sick over the past couple days. He's 8 months old, and my wife's in there taking a nap with him, and my wife's been telling me to put this little swing up that she bought him for a long time now. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a break, put that swing up for him, and really just spend a little bit of time with him on the Saturday. We were supposed to be going out of town, and he got sick, so we had to end up canceling. So I wasn't even going to be working on the car this weekend, but I'm in here now. I'm going to come back and finish up this intake manifold in a little bit. So for now, though, I'm going to go put the swing up for him, and then I'll be back to the car once that's done. All right, so the fuel rails are on, and I'm gonna move on to the actual front fuel lines and also the fuel pressure regulator. And one cool thing about, well, let me explain. I have the Holley EFI setup on this car. It's a really great setup. I honestly have never personally used it, but I've seen it on some Formula Drift cars that I've kind of helped with, and it's a really great setup. And I went with that just again to keep it simple. By the time you build your own harness and everything, and then you have issues. The last car I had so many wiring issues, so I didn't want to go through that again. So anyways, one cool thing about the Holley EFI setup are these. They're called transducers, And more or less what it is like a little pressure, it's basically a little pressure sensor. And you can use these for all sorts of things. So you can use them for boost, you can use them for fuel pressure, you can use them for oil pressure, or any kind of pressures you want to use. You can get them between different PSIs. And so on my little digital dash, I'll have everything there, fuel pressure, oil pressure. Not that you can't do that with another setup, but these things just make it super simple to do that. You literally just screw them in wherever you need to find your pressure. And if you have to wire one, there's this place on the factory or on the Holley harness that you can tap into. Fortunately, Holley already has fuel and oil, but like for boost control, I had to wire one in for boost. So anyways, just a quick little tip and kind of give you a little bit more idea of what the car has rather than at the end just telling you every single thing the car's got. Like I said, the Holley FI setup is what I'm running as far as management. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up these fuel lines and fuel rails and then bolt the intake manifold in. The intake manifold is done. There's a few small things like putting the injectors on, not injectors, the ignition packs on, but as far as like the overall bolting everything in, all the sensors, everything's good to go. So the next step for me is to I need to pull off the alternator and the water pump and the power steering pulley or pump, because I never really fully torqued them, so I need to pull them off and make sure all the gaskets are there that need to be there and just check everything, because it really just kind of put them on there to kind of mock up, check, make sure everything's going to fit. But to kind of finish up tonight or today, it's still daytime here, it feels like night, it's been a long day. I want to go ahead and kind of walk you through the car. Okay guys, so I got a better idea as far as what I'm gonna go over today in this video. I don't wanna bore you with some long, because literally it would probably take me 15-20 minutes to go over everything on the car. So what I'm gonna do is, since we're working on the engine right now and kind of staying up here in the compartment, I guess the front compartment, I'm just gonna go over what's on the engine and everything on the front of the car. We know, I guess from this video, it's a stock LS1 intake manifold, stock throttle body. Most of everything is stock on the engine, minus it's got a Little John Motorsport cam, and it's got dual springs. It's truck manifolds, which are turned forward and just welded V-bands onto them, so that's nothing special there. Got a VS Racing 7875 turbo. Again, pretty cheap turbo. I try to do this build as budget as possible at first, just to kind of really, turbo stuff's all new for me, so I wanted to kind of learn with this setup. And as I learn, I can upgrade the turbos, I can upgrade, manifolds and all that. Got just the oil cooler here, power steering cooler. This is just like a CX Racing style intercooler, I believe. Power steering wise, this is pretty cool. So this is a power steering adjuster. So I twist that knob and I can choose how much power steering assist is coming from the GM pump going to the IS300 rack. So this should be able to let me really dial in the feel of the car as far as the steering goes. So I'm definitely excited about that to see. It may be terrible, but I think it's gonna be a pretty cool little setup. Back here is the Mighty Mouse breather, and it's just two 8AN lines on each bank over there. So I got one on this side, and then the other one's back there in the back somewhere. I think that's pretty much it as far as, you can see my coolant lines here. Now, don't hate too bad. I know you can probably see them in the other videos. That was the first TIG project I ever took on, so it was a huge ordeal. And just to show you real fast, I know I said I'd stick to the engine, but these things go all the way through the car, snake through here. I mean, it's aluminum lines all the way to the back, so it was a tough job, but I ended up getting it. It looks okay. The welds aren't the prettiest, but I pressure tested everything came out great. Only have one little pinhole, so I'm pretty happy about that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's more or less what's on the front end of the car. If you have any other questions, please email me, go to my Facebook or Instagram, any of that, I'll have that link below. And I'm free to answer, even YouTube comments. I'd love to answer any of the questions you have. I'm learning a lot too, so by no means am I an expert in any of this. I'm not some professional engine builder or anything. I'm very much just a dude in a garage with some cheap tools and just making it work. So I think that's gonna end this video. The next video, we're gonna finish up the engine hopefully and get some fluids in this thing and get ready to rock and roll as far as letting it run and get this thing tuned. So I am really hoping in the next 7 days, I really say 5 days, that I hear this thing running. I'm pretty excited about that. So I do have a little fab work to do in the future, so there'll be a video where we'll kind of finish up the downpipe. But other than that, that's going to end today's video. So